In the quiet town of Millbrook, nestled between rolling hills and ancient forests, lived a young woman named Elena Rodriguez. At 28, she worked as a local librarian, surrounded by countless stories, yet feeling remarkably disconnected from her own life's narrative. Her days followed a predictable rhythm, shelving books, helping occasional readers, and returning home to her small apartment above the town's bakery. Elena's world changed unexpectedly on a crisp autumn morning when an old, leather-bound book arrived at the library. Unlike other donations, this book seemed different. Its pages were yellowed, edges frayed, and a strange symbol etched into its leather cover caught her eye. When she opened it, a folded piece of paper slipped out, revealing a mysterious hand-drawn map with cryptic markings. Her curiosity sparked instantly. The map appeared to show a route through the nearby forest, with peculiar symbols marking specific locations. Most intriguing was a circled spot deep within the woodland accompanied by what looked like coordinates and a barely legible note. The secret remains here. For weeks, Elena couldn't shake the map from her thoughts. She knew the forest well. She had walked its trails countless times during her childhood. But this map suggested something more existed beyond the familiar paths she knew. One quiet Saturday morning, she decided to investigate. Dressed in practical hiking clothes and carrying a small backpack with essential supplies, Elena set out early. The forest was peaceful, sunlight filtering through dense branches, creating a magical golden-green atmosphere. She carefully followed the map's markings, checking her compass and comparing the terrain with the drawn route. Hours passed. The forest grew thicker, older. Trees seemed larger, more ancient, their branches creating a canopy that blocked most sunlight. Elena realized she was far from any marked trail, deeper in the woodland than she had ever been before. Just when she was considering turning back, she spotted something unusual. A small clearing appeared, almost perfectly circular. In its center stood a flat stone with strange engravings, exactly matching one of the symbols on her mysterious map. Her heart raced. This was no ordinary discovery. The stone seemed deliberately placed, its markings too precise to be random. Around the stone, the ground looked slightly disturbed, as if something had been buried or moved recently. Elena knelt down, hands trembling slightly. She brushed away leaves and moss, revealing more intricate markings. They weren't just random scratches. They seemed like a language, an ancient code waiting to be understood. As afternoon light began to fade, she realized she needed to return, but she knew she would come back. This discovery was just the beginning of something much larger, a mystery that called to her deepest sense of adventure and curiosity. Little did Elena know that her simple act of exploration would unravel a story, generations in the making, a tale of hidden histories, forgotten secrets, and a connection to something far beyond her quiet life in Millbrook. The forest watched silently, holding its mysteries close, waiting for Elena to return and uncover what had been hidden for so long. When she finally returned home that evening, her mind was spinning with questions. The map, the stone, the mysterious markings. They all pointed to something significant, and she was determined to understand what story they were trying to tell. Her adventure had only just begun, and the quiet librarian was about to step into a world far more extraordinary than the books she had spent her life organizing. The next morning, Elena returned to the library with a renewed sense of purpose. She carefully examined the map and the mysterious stone's markings, spreading her research materials across a quiet corner of the library. Old historical records, folklore collections, and local archives became her primary focus. Days turned into weeks. Her colleagues noticed her increasing dedication, whispering about her sudden intense research. Elena barely noticed their conversations, completely absorbed in decoding the symbols she had discovered in the forest. One rainy afternoon, while sorting through a dusty collection of town historical documents, she found an old journal. The handwriting was faded, but still readable. It belonged to a local explorer from nearly 100 years ago, Thomas Wheeler, a name barely remembered in Millbrook's history. The journal detailed strange expeditions into the same forest where, Elena had found the stone. Wheeler wrote about ancient markings, hidden chambers, and a mysterious artifact that local legends claimed held incredible power. Most people had dismissed his writings as the ramblings of a crazy man, but Elena saw something different. Her research connected fragments. The symbols on the stone matched some of Wheeler's sketches. Geographical details in his journal aligned perfectly with the map she had discovered. Something significant was waiting to be uncovered. Meanwhile, an unexpected visitor arrived at the library. An elderly man named Robert Jenkins seemed particularly interested in Elena's research. He would sit quietly watching her work, occasionally offering a cryptic comment that seemed to hint at deeper knowledge. One quiet evening, as the library was about to close, Robert approached Elena. "You're getting close to something important," he said, his voice soft but intense. "The forest keeps its secrets, but some secrets want to be found." Elena felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Robert knew more than he was saying. His eyes held a depth of understanding that suggested he was connected to the mystery in ways she couldn't yet understand. That night, she couldn't sleep. The map, the stone, Wheeler's journal, and Robert's mysterious words swirled in her mind. Something was pulling her toward a discovery that felt bigger than herself. The next morning, she decided to return to the forest. This time, she was better prepared. She packed professional archaeological tools, extra supplies, and a detailed plan to systematically explore the area where she had found the stone. The forest welcomed her like an old friend. Sunlight danced through the trees, and a gentle breeze carried whispers of ancient stories. Elena moved carefully, documenting every discovery, every unusual marking she found. Hours passed. Just when she was about to give up, she noticed something unusual. A small opening between two massive tree roots revealed a hidden space. Using her flashlight, she discovered what looked like a deliberately constructed tunnel entrance. Her heart raced. This was no natural formation. Someone had created this hidden passage, and it connected directly to the area marked on Wheeler's map. Carefully, she entered the tunnel. The air was cool and damp, filled with the scent of earth and history. Ancient wooden supports lined the tunnel walls, suggesting it had been constructed decades, perhaps even centuries ago. At the tunnel's end, a small chamber opened up. In its center stood a stone pedestal, and on that pedestal rested a small metal box. Elena's hands trembled as she approached. The box was intricately designed, covered in the same symbols she had been studying. It seemed to be waiting, holding a story that had remained untold for generations. As she reached out to touch the box, a sound echoed behind her. Footsteps. Someone else was in the tunnel. Elena turned, her flashlight revealing Robert Jenkins, standing at the tunnel's entrance. His eyes were intense, filled with a mixture of anticipation and something else. Recognition. "Some stories," he said quietly, "are meant to be discovered by the right person." The mystery was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Robert Jenkins sat beside Elena in the underground chamber, his weathered hands carefully examining the metal box. The tunnel around them felt ancient, filled with a sense of hidden history waiting to be revealed. "This box," Robert explained, "belongs to a story that began long before either of us were born." His fingers traced the intricate symbols, each movement deliberate and meaningful. Elena watched, sensing that she was about to learn something extraordinary. The box wasn't locked in any traditional sense. Instead, it required a specific sequence of movements, almost like a complex puzzle. Robert's fingers moved with practiced precision, pressing specific points on the metal surface. With a soft click, the box opened. Inside lay 3 items: an old photograph, a small leather-bound journal, and a single brass key with unusual markings. The photograph showed a group of explorers standing in front of an unfamiliar building, their faces marked by determination and something that looked like fear. Elena carefully unfolded the journal. The first page bore a name: Margaret Collins, 1923. The handwriting was precise, each word carefully selected. Margaret appeared to be an archaeologist who had been investigating something profound in the very forest where Elena had been exploring. Robert's voice broke the silence. "Margaret was my grandmother," he revealed. "She discovered something in these woods that was both incredible and dangerous, a secret that some people wanted to remain hidden forever." The journal detailed Margaret's research into an ancient civilization that had once inhabited the region. She wrote about mysterious artifacts, hidden underground structures, and a powerful artifact that could potentially change everything people understood about local history. As Elena read, she realized this was more than just a historical discovery. The journal suggested that the artifact Margaret sought was more than an archaeological curiosity. It seemed to possess some kind of significant power. "Why are you showing me this?" Elena asked, looking directly at Robert. He smiled, a mix of wisdom and sadness in his eyes. "Because you're the first person in decades who has shown the same curiosity, the same determination that my grandmother had. You're meant to continue her work." The brass key felt heavy in Elena's hand. Its design was unlike anything she had seen before. Intricate geometric patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. Robert explained that the key was connected to a specific location, another hidden site within the forest. Night was falling outside the tunnel. The chamber felt increasingly mysterious, filled with the weight of untold stories. Elena understood that she was standing at the beginning of a journey that would change everything she knew about her hometown, about history itself. Robert shared more details about Margaret's research. She had been part of a small group of researchers who believed that the forest held secrets far beyond traditional archaeological understanding. They had discovered evidence of a civilization that predated known historical records, with technological and cultural achievements that would challenge everything scholars believed. Not everyone wanted these secrets to be revealed, Robert warned. Some powerful people prefer that certain histories remain buried. The photograph showed Margaret standing with 5 other researchers. Each person looked serious, almost concerned. Elena noticed that one figure had been partially scratched out, as if someone had deliberately tried to remove their presence from the image. As they prepared to leave the tunnel, Robert handed Elena the journal and the key. "These are yours now," he said. "The story isn't finished. In fact, it's just beginning." Outside, the forest had grown dark. Moonlight filtered through ancient trees, casting long shadows. Something felt different, as if the woods themselves were watching, waiting to see what would happen next. Elena knew her life would never be the same. The quiet librarian had become something more, a guardian of a mystery that had waited decades to be uncovered. The key felt warm in her hand, a promise of adventures yet to come, of secrets waiting to be revealed. The following weeks became a blur of research and preparation. Elena knew the brass key was more than just an old artifact. It was a gateway to something significant. She spent countless hours comparing Margaret's journal entries with local historical records, mapping out potential locations mentioned in the cryptic notes. Robert visited her occasionally, offering subtle guidance without revealing too much. He seemed to be testing her, watching how she approached the mystery. Elena understood that this was more than a simple historical investigation. It was a carefully orchestrated journey. One chilly morning, she discovered a series of coordinates, hidden within the journal's margins. They pointed to a remote area deep in the forest, far from any marked trails. The location matched perfectly with an unusual topographical feature Margaret had sketched decades earlier. Elena prepared meticulously. She packed professional equipment, GPS device, high-resolution camera, climbing gear, and survival supplies. Her librarian colleagues thought she was taking an extended hiking trip. Only Robert knew the true nature of her expedition. The forest welcomed her like an old friend. Massive trees stood like silent guardians, their branches creating a natural canopy that filtered sunlight into magical green patterns. Elena moved carefully, following the precise coordinates Margaret had marked decades ago. Hours passed. The terrain became increasingly challenging. Rocky slopes replaced gentle woodland paths. Strange rock formations seemed deliberately positioned, almost like ancient markers guiding her route. Elena recognized some of the symbols from Margaret's journal. They weren't random markings, but a sophisticated navigational system. As afternoon approached, she discovered a hidden entrance. Perfectly camouflaged between massive boulders, it looked like a natural rock formation until you knew exactly where to look. The brass key felt heavy in her pocket, almost vibrating with anticipation. The entrance revealed a narrow passageway. Ancient wooden supports lined the tunnel walls, suggesting human construction from many generations ago. Elena's flashlight revealed intricate markings similar to those she had studied in Margaret's journal. Deep within the tunnel, she found a circular chamber. Unlike the previous underground spaces she had explored, this one felt different, more refined, with precisely carved stone walls covered in complex geometric designs. At the chamber's center stood a raised platform. On that platform rested a small metallic object. It wasn't large, perhaps the size of a human hand, but it radiated an unexplainable energy. The object seemed to be constructed from a material Elena couldn't immediately identify, its surface reflecting light in unusual, almost liquid-like patterns. As she approached, the brass key in her pocket began to warm. When she was just a few steps from the platform, it suddenly felt magnetic, pulling towards the metallic object. A sound behind her made Elena spin around. Footsteps. Someone else was in the tunnel. Robert emerged from the shadows, his expression a mixture of pride and concern. "You found it faster than your grandmother ever did," he said quietly. Elena realized this was more than a historical discovery. Whatever this artifact represented, it carried weight far beyond simple archaeological significance. The look in Robert's eyes suggested secrets that could potentially change everything people understood about their world. "What is this?" Elena asked, her voice barely a whisper. Robert's response was measured. "A beginning," he said. "Not an ending." The artifact seemed to pulse with an internal energy. Elena understood that her quiet life as a librarian had permanently changed. She was now part of something much larger, a story that had been waiting. Generations to be told. Outside, the forest remained silent. Ancient trees watched, holding their secrets close, waiting to see what would happen next. The mysterious journey was far from over. In fact, it was just starting to reveal its true complexity. The artifact remained mysteriously silent in Elena's research room. Surrounded by protective glass and careful monitoring equipment, it seemed to pulse with an internal energy that defied scientific explanation. Robert had warned her about handling it directly, suggesting there were risks she couldn't yet understand. Local experts from the university became interested. They examined photographs and preliminary data, but Elena carefully controlled what information was shared. Something told her that this discovery was too important to be treated like a typical archaeological find. Strange things began happening around Elena. Electronic devices near the artifact would occasionally malfunction. Compasses would spin wildly when brought close to the research space. Her colleagues noticed her increasing isolation, her growing obsession with understanding the object's origins. Margaret's journal provided fragmented clues. The notes suggested the artifact was part of a larger system, something that connected multiple locations across the region. Each entry hinted at a complex network of knowledge that had been deliberately hidden for generations. One night, while working late, Elena discovered a hidden map sewn into the journal's leather binding. When heated slightly, invisible ink revealed additional coordinates and symbols. The map showed a complex network of locations across the forest and surrounding mountains, each marked with the same intricate symbols she had found on the artifact. Robert appeared less frequently now. When he did visit, his conversations became more cryptic. "Some secrets choose their own time to be revealed," he would say, watching the artifact with a mixture of respect and caution. Unexplained events started occurring in Millbrook. Unusual, electromagnetic readings were detected in the forest. Local wildlife behaved strangely, seemingly avoiding specific areas that matched the coordinates on Margaret's hidden map. Elena's research took her deeper into the mystery. She discovered that similar artifacts had been rumored to exist in other parts of the world, objects that seemed to challenge everything known about human history and technological development. The artifact itself remained her primary focus. Under careful microscopic examination, its surface revealed nanoscale structures that shouldn't have been possible with current technology. The material seemed to have properties that defied normal physical laws. Local authorities began showing interest. Unmarked government vehicles were spotted around Elena's research area. She knew she was being watched, but something drove her to continue her investigation. A breakthrough came unexpectedly. While cross-referencing Margaret's notes, with geological surveys, Elena discovered a pattern. The artifact's locations seemed to align with unique geological formations, places where the Earth's magnetic fields behaved unusually. Robert appeared one evening with additional information. Some discoveries are not meant to be understood quickly, he warned. They reveal themselves slowly, like a story told across generations. The artifact seemed to respond to Elena's presence. Sensitive equipment would register subtle energy fluctuations whenever she was near. It was almost as if the object recognized her, understood her deep curiosity. Local indigenous elders became interested. They spoke of ancient stories about guardians, of knowledge about artifacts that carried memories of forgotten civilizations. Their legends seemed to align mysteriously with Elena's discoveries. As weeks passed, Elena realized she was part of something much larger than herself. The quiet librarian had become a keeper of a mystery that stretched beyond simple historical research. The artifact was more than an object. It was a key to understanding something profound about human history. The forest outside continued to hold its secrets. Ancient trees watched silently, witnesses to a story that had been waiting generations to be told. Robert's final words before disappearing again echoed in Elena's mind. Some discoveries change everything, and some discoveries choose their own. Time to be understood. The artifact pulsed softly in its protective display, waiting. Its story was far from over. In fact, it felt like everything was just beginning. The mystery of Millbrook had found its unexpected guardian, and Elena knew, deep in her heart, that this was only the first chapter of an extraordinary journey.